Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Parul Patel, and I'm the Associate Grants Officer with the Quality of Life Grants Program. I'll be hosting today's reporting webinar. Before we get started, just a quick note, please type any questions you have in the Q&A chat box. We'll do our best to address all of your questions within the scheduled time. If we aren't able to get to yours, feel free to reach out to us at qol@reeve.org. Today, Today, I'll be covering the following topics: report reminder notifications, how to access grants portal and locate your reports, a walkthrough of the reporting questions, along with guidance on how to answer them, financial and expense reporting, and requirements for budget revisions and no cost extensions. These are the report due dates for each grant cycle. For those who have access to your grant agreement, you'll find the full reporting schedule included there as well. The reporting schedule is determined by your grant tier. Tiers 1, 2, and 3 have project timelines of less than 24 months. Therefore, two reports are required: an interim report and a final report. Tier 4 grants span 24 months and require four reports: a 6-month check in, a 12-month interim, an 18-month check in, and a 24-month final report. Report reminder notifications. 30 days before your report due date, Foundant, our grants reporting portal, will automatically send a reminder to the applicant on file. If that individual has left your organization or is no longer connected to the grant, the report will need to be reassigned. Please notify the QOL team as soon as possible and provide new contact's name, email address, and phone number. If the contact information is not updated and founded, the notifications will not get to the proper individuals and the reports will be delayed. We get a lot of instances where there's attrition and people don't leave additional contacts. So it behooves the grantees to provide this information and keep the contacts current as, as soon as possible. All reports must be submitted in Foundant, and all reminder emails include a direct link to Foundant. I say this because we have instances where folks come back and send an email, they can't find their link. They can't find their link to Foundant, but if you check your report reminder emails, there's the direct links are included in those. The grant agreement has it, and if you're the applicant, I hope that you guys are bookmarking it. But if you have any issues, please contact QOL@reeve.org. The reminders are the same except for interim and final reports. Reminders, they contain two important instructions highlighted in red. So let me just quickly show you what these notifications look like. So this is a 6-month check-in notification. You see in the subject line is the report reminder name. The expended impact is the grant type. This grants portal in blue is your direct link to Foundant, and this is the email you would use. This works, or reeve.org also works if you have issues and need assistance in logging on. This is a reminder for the interim report notification. And so here is that note in red I was telling you about. This is it just says for the interim reporting, all project changes must be pre-approved by the foundation prior to reporting. Do not submit this report if a budget revision is needed. Okay. This is a reminder for 2024 direct effect second cycle emails that you'll be getting. Again, this has a red note. Do not submit this report and contact me if awarded funds have not been fully expensed. Please note that the note regarding fully expensing the awarded funds only applies to final reporting. Because this is an all-inclusive report, all funding must be expensed at final reporting. So to summarize, all project changes must be approved by the foundation before you submit your report. Do not submit your report if a budget revision is required, if awarded funds have not been fully spent, specifically for final reporting, or if any project changes are still pending approval. These requirements are important because we track and report on funded activities line by line. Our reporting compares your proposed budget and activities with the actual outcomes. We cannot close a project if there is an outstanding balance. So please wait to submit your report until all of these conditions have been resolved. Accessing the grants portal. If you don't already have it bookmarked, or if you're unable to locate the link, again, use the grants portal link in the email reminder. As the applicant, you should already have the login credentials, but if you don't, or if you're having issues, reach out to qol@reeve.org for assistance. Once again, you log in. Once you log in, you can access your report from your dashboard, fill it out, and submit it. For those who are not familiar, this is what the fountain screen looks like. On the right-hand side of this page is our contact email right here if you're having issues logging in. Okay, once you log in, you will see your dashboard. It indicates the grant cycle, expanded impact with a 6-month check-in. You can access the next report due. You should always go in chronological order. So December 31st, 2025 is the first report you should be working on. And you can either enter the report from the start button, or you can click this arrow directional. Either one works. I blotted out the area, the black marks. That's where your org name would be. That's where your project name would be. And this is where you, the applicant, would be, your name. So the check-in report, these are the questions that are on the check-in report. The check-in report is designed to provide a brief update on your project's progress, including key activities, accomplishments, challenges, and any changes from what was originally proposed. It only has 2 questions. Your project name and the amount awarded in no matter what report you're working on will be pre-filled from the original application. Please, as you fill out these reports, keep your reports straightforward. There's no need to include excessive details. We do have character limits. So the first question has to do with the timeline. Is your project on schedule? What major accomplishments have occurred compared to the proposed activities? Are there any challenges or issues that could impact the project or its timeline? For something like this, by way of example, if your project is on schedule, you can state The project is on schedule with no issues to report, and as outlined in the proposed timeline, we have ordered the equipment and begun outreach efforts and volunteer recruitment. On the other hand, if your project is not on schedule, you would need to state the reason for the delay, how it affects the project, and what steps you are taking to adjust. So, for a project that's not on schedule, you would enter something like the proposed exercise equipment is no longer available. We are working with multiple vendors to identify comparable options at similar price points. We will contact the Reeve Foundation to request approval for the equipment and pricing changes. At this time, the impact on the project timeline and outcomes is unclear, but we will provide ongoing updates to the foundation as we learn more. Something like that. Okay. The next item is project changes. Any changes to the proposed project must be approved in writing by the foundation before they are implemented. By the way, this is also included in the grant agreement. So if you have access to it, I would encourage that you read through it. It does include a lot of the important things related to reporting on our policies. The report should not be used to request changes. This is because once the report is in queue, depending on our priorities internal to QOL, we may not get to the report timely, and by the time we get it, we realize that it needs to be worked on, and it's going to cause all kinds of delays, and we want to mitigate those type of delays to the extent possible. So for something like this, if there were no changes, just enter NA. If there were foundation approved changes, please provide a brief explanation of what those changes were in the narrative. And then at the very bottom right-hand side, you have the save and the follow-up. Save follow-up and submit follow-up options. These options are available in all of the reports. Save allows you to return later and make additional edits. Submit, on the other hand, locks the form. Once submitted, you will no longer be able to make any edits. If you submit the report and later realize that edits are needed, the QOL team can revert the report to draft, and by doing that, it will put it back in your queue and allow you to make edits, but you will need to get in touch with us, QOL@reeve.org. Okay. So moving on to interim reports. This is a dashboard with a 2025 direct effect first cycle grant. Interim report due date of 12/31/25 right here. Again, these things are your organization specific information. You can start the report from here or here. In this interim and the final, both of these reports require an Excel expense file. Those files are shared with you by us on your dashboard. So if you click on the Documents tab, it'll open up this Forms section here, and this is where you would see the files. Since the next report up is the interim, you would see the interim budget for reporting. Once this is completed, we will replace the interim with the final. So the process to access it is the same. Through your dashboard, under Documents, under Files. Once you locate the file, you'll obviously need to download the file to make the edits and attach it with the report. Okay, these are the interim questions. Again, the timeline question is a yes no option on this form here. Let me back up. So the interim report provides a snapshot of your progress at a midpoint of your project's timeline and includes four questions. The first one is a timeline yes, no. So you'll be asked whether your project is on schedule. If it is, then select yes and enter NA for the follow-up question here. If, on the other hand, the project is not on schedule, select no and explain the reason for the delay, how it affects the project, and what steps you are taking to get back on track. An example response of a project not on schedule would be the adapted chairs were ordered 2 months later than expected, they were delivered 2 months later than expected, causing a delay in the project timeline. We plan to make up this time by increasing the number of classes offered during the remaining project period. This will allow us to meet our goal of offering 8 classes and still close out the project as scheduled. So that would be a sample response for this question. Project accomplishments. In this section, briefly summarize your year-to-date accomplishments compared to what was proposed. For example, equipment was ordered and received, participants beginning to use the new chairs, or initial activities underway. Again, keep your responses simple. Project changes. Here, note any foundation approved modifications, such as revisions, budget revision, changes in quantities, adjustments to the scope, or other approved updates, and explain their impact on the project. For example, if you propose to purchase 4 wheelchairs, but purchase less than 4, you would report something like the actual unit cost of the chairs were higher than anticipated due to increased manufacturing costs, and the vendor was unable to honor the original quote. As a result, we were able to purchase 3 of the proposed 4 chairs with the awarded funds. However, we purchased an additional chair using internal funds, so there is no impact on the project. This change was communicated to and approved by the foundation. So that would be a sample response of any changes made, because now there's a decrease in the quantity in terms of what was going to be purchased with the approved funding. Yet the quantity does not change because the organization used the internal funds, so there is no impact to the overall outcomes of the project. Financial reporting. Use the shared file that I showed you, just where to extract that file from, and download the file, enter your expenses, and upload the updated version with your report. To avoid accidentally attaching the original bank file, I recommend saving your updated versions with the new file name. I often review reports and their expense files are the same as the budget file. Nothing was updated. It's just 0 expenses. So please make sure that you are attaching a correct updated file. So if this expense file with 0 amount expensed was submitted with the report and the narrative indicated expense activity, it will not be accepted. This is not to say that all files with 0 amount expensed will be rejected. 0 amount expensed file is okay if no expenses were incurred during the first 6 months, as long as the narrative clearly supports that and explains that there were no expenditures. But if the narrative suggests that there was expense activity and the file showed zero amount expensed, then we would not be able to complete this report unless we get clarification. Okay. So this is another example. If a file like this came in, we would not be able to accept it because, as you can see, although it has the expenses, the 12,000, nothing is itemized. We would expect to see an itemized list of expenses, not just a lump sum of the 12,000. In both examples, the report would be reverted to draft in Foundant, and an email would be sent to the applicant to correct both the file and or report and resubmit the report in Foundant. Okay, a file like this is acceptable because the expenses are itemized. It's not just a lump sum. There's an expense in the budgeted categories. As a reminder, we only manage and report on funds we provide, line by line. That said, prices can fluctuate, and you may need to either use other funding sources to cover any increased costs or reallocate funds within the project so the project itself absorbs the additional expense. If you choose to use other funding sources for the overage, please ensure that the expense does not exceed the amount funded. Do not include costs beyond the allocated funding. Well, what does that mean? It means that if your approved budget is $11,880, but the actual expenses, as it turned out, are going to be 14,000, let's say. Do not, and you're using internal funds to cover the difference between 11,880 funded and the 14,000 actual. Because you use internal funds and we don't manage anything but what we funded, you don't need to include that expense into this file. Just limit the maximum to the amount funded. Because when you do that at interim, especially when final report comes in, your bottom line is going to be, your balance is going to be skewed because you're not holding true to the amount that was actually awarded. So the other scenario is because now you have an increased cost and you want to reallocate the funds because you would like the project to absorb the costs, the additional expense. So if you choose to do it that way, if you want the project to cover the additional costs, then you would need to request a budget revision to reallocate the approved funds before incurring the expense. This is necessary because reallocating funds changes how they were originally intended to be used, which could affect the project's proposed outcomes. So again, a budget revision would be required if you would like the project to absorb any additional costs. And it stands to reason because if you increase one line item and you cannot change the amount awarded, so you must decrease it. It's a plus and a minus. So, okay. After the financial reporting, you can attach any relevant additional material in support of your project, like links to videos or pictures to conclude your interim reporting. That's it. And now you're done with your interim report. Final reporting. So this is a sample of the dashboard where the next report due is the final report. Again, right here, January 31st, 2026. These are the documents available, and this is the final expense budget file for reporting. The intent of the final report is to provide a comprehensive comparison of proposed versus actual outcomes. If it serves as a complete account of refunding, detailing both the narrative and final expenditures in relation to the originally proposed or pre-approved revised goals, objectives, and budget. Okay, just like the interim, the first one, the reports look exactly the same, except some questions may look different or maybe in a different order. But so the first item on the final report is project completion. And there's that note again in red. Do not complete this report if there are remaining funds or if project changes have not been approved. A project is not complete and cannot be closed if the amount expensed is less than the total funded amount or proposed activities are still pending. So if all of these things are met, select yes. Only if funding has been fully expensed and all project activities, including evaluation, outcomes measures, have been completed. And then enter NA in the next section here. If the answer is no, please email me at ppatel.reeve@reeve.org explaining why the project is not complete before the report due date. Delays in reporting will affect project closure, our reporting to ACL, who is our funder, and may impact your future eligibility as well as your reapplication timeline. Project changes. If no changes occurred, just like the interim, enter NA. If changes were made and approved, provide an explanation narrative to indicate what the change was, like delivery, program delivery, budget adjustment, no cost extensions, etc. A sample response would be a budget revision was required because the actual cost of the equipment purchased was lower than expected, resulting in savings of X number of dollars. The foundation approved the redirecting of these saves from the equipment to contractor fees to cover the cost of the certified fitness trainer. So something like that for a budget revision. All the next item is project goals proposed. Everything that was proposed will be pre-filled from the original application. And your answer, your response would be relative to what was proposed. Okay, so project goals actual. This is where you want to report on what was accomplished in relation to all original and or revised goals. For any goals not fully achieved, provide an explanation. For example, if the goal was increase accessibility to community center to benefit 30 people with paralysis by replacing a ramp, for example, right? So if you fully met the goal, your sample response would be the ramp was purchased and installed and improved accessibility and benefited 30 people with paralysis. However, if you partially met your goal, then you would state something like the ramp was purchased and installed, benefiting 20 people with paralysis versus 30 proposed. Outreach was delayed due to program manager or project manager taking an unanticipated leave of absence, resulting in a fewer number of people served than anticipated. Something like that. So anything to explain or something to explain what the reason for the variance. Again, the evaluation and project measures proposed will be pre-filled. Evaluation, project managers, actual. This is where you want to put the final outputs and outcomes of your project. So an output is a quantifiable measures like a number of people served or lesson provided. An outcome is a measurable change in a person's attitude, knowledge, or behavior, such as increased knowledge, satisfaction, or improved quality of life. Uh, Please make sure that your responses align with what was proposed in your original application. Just look at the proposed section and respond accordingly in the actual section. So, by way of example, if you propose 25 people with paralysis will receive 100 equine therapy sessions, and majority will report a positive impact on health, social interactions, and quality of life. Let's say that was your proposed evaluation and measure. So your response for the output would be 25 people received the equine therapy sessions. Your response for the outcomes would be 96 of the respondents reported a positive impact on overall health and wellness. 90% reported improved social interactions. 100% reported improved quality of life. So these are just a few examples. Again, if they have to align to what was initially proposed. If, on the other hand, if your output was lower than expected, you want to state why that was. So your response would be, although 25 people with paralysis were expected to participate. Based on the early registration, only 20 people participated. 5 people with paralysis did not participate. And if you can support this with a reason, all the better. 5 people did not participate due to lack of transportation or caregiver availability. Again, if you have that information, great. If not, you state what you are able to state. Impact. So this impact for paralysis, people with paralysis, is the same as the impact number of caregivers with family members, caregivers and family members of individuals with paralysis. Same instructions. So the impact, the number, excuse me, will be pre-populated from your original application. This in this section, you would actually input the number that were served, and this is where you state the variance. So if enter NA if the actual number matches the proposed number. If the actual number is less than proposed, explain why. And in the example that I just gave, 5 people did not participate due to lack of transportation or caregiver availability. If the actual number is greater than proposed, you may explain the reason if desired, or NA. We'll leave that up to you. It's your choice. Okay. Like I said, the impact related to caregivers and family members, same instructions. You would plug in the number and add the comments as needed. Challenges and lessons learned. So for challenges, you would describe any difficulties encountered during the project, such as staffing changes, low participant turnout, contractor issues, or equipment availability, and explain how you address them. An example, proposed equipment was no longer available. After consulting multiple manufacturers, we found similar equipment within the budget, something like that. For lessons learned, share insights gained from the project, including what you would do differently in the future, some things to consider. Did collaboration with other organizations or groups improve project outcomes? What strategies worked well and what challenges remain? As a sample response, additional collaboration significantly increased demand for our services. Outreach efforts led to a new partnership with organization ABC. As a result, our client list and service demand grew by, and you could say X percentage, allowing us to serve X number more clients than originally proposed. We plan to continue building this partnership beyond this grant period. So something like that would satisfy this question. Financial reporting. Use the expense file, which we have shared. Again, if you're not able to find the file, you can always reach out to QOL. This is the first item I personally review. The reports will not be accepted if there is a remaining balance or if any expenses lack the approved budget. The expense file remains the most common reason for report rejection. To avoid issues, please ensure that you save the updated file with a new name before submitted. Make sure you are using the most current file, the file that we've shared, so that you don't accidentally attach the wrong file, an outdated version, or a blank file. So if a final report came in and I saw this file, the report would be rejected because this shows a balance of $600 remaining. This is a final report. It should be a full accounting of the awarded funds. So we cannot have any balance remaining. This is a good file. This shows zero balance remaining, funding fully expensed, good to go. And again, as with the interim reports, this additional materials section, you can attach additional relevant materials such as photographs and videos and complete this does have that impact evaluation here, which is managed by Vanderbilt University. So we expect that all grantees fill this out to conclude the final reporting. And that takes care of all the reports. So to recap, we've covered report reminder emails, accessing Foundant, reviewing the reporting questions and how to respond to them, as well as handling budget files. The last topic that needs to be covered is budget revisions and no-cost extensions. So these are some of the guidelines for requesting a budget revision and if a no-cost extension is needed. So a budget revision is required in any of the following situation. A budget category changes by more than 10%. Funds need to be reallocated between line items. Changes in the timeline or vendors affect costs, or when cost or savings need to be moved between activities. When submitting a request, please include the following. Reasons for the revision. Explain why the revision is necessary. Pricing changes, program delivery adjustments, product availability, etc. The impact of this reallocation on the project. Describe how it will affect the project. Will it impact the number of people served? Shift from in-person to online program delivery, etc. So how will this impact the project itself? Impact on the timeline. Indicate whether the reallocation affects the project timeline. For example, sometimes it doesn't always impact the timeline, but if it does, for example, if you're switching equipment, have you considered availability and is there any preparation or lead time required? So Depending on, the specific situation, you may go beyond the project timeline and may need an extension. The last item that would accompany this request is the revision file. Again, download the shared file, enter the year-to-date expense amount, and add a column labeled Budget Revision Requested. Keep in mind that funds that have already been reported as expensed cannot be moved. And that's why we'd like to see the year-to-date amount expensed. So here's a budget for 24,000. Given this budget, suppose you wanted to reallocate $3,000 from the consultant line to the executive director line without affecting the timeline. So currently there's a $4,000 budget here for the instructor under consultant and 5,000 for the executive director. So you would submit a request to say something like, due to an emergency, the consultant is no longer available to provide exercise instruction. Our executive director, who is a certified exercise instructor, will conduct the remaining classes. Therefore, we request to reallocate $3,000 from the consultant line to the executive director line under personnel costs. This adjustment will not affect the overall project or its timeline. So with this request, with that narrative, you would provide this file. So here, as you can see budget revision requested column has been added. Year-to-date expenses have been included. And here, the 5,000, which was to be increased by 3,000, is now 8,000 right here. The 3,000 is reduced in the instructor, exercise instructor budget to 1,000. So now the personnel budget went from 8,000 to 11. The consultant budget went from 4,000 to 1,000. Net difference 0, because here the amount awarded has not changed, and it should not change in any revised budget. We have to work with whatever was awarded in its entirety. So you may change the budget allocation within the multiple lines, but you cannot change the bottom cost. The funded amount must stay constant. Okay. Since the revised budget replaces the previous approved budget versions, the old budget file will be removed from your dashboard, and an updated budget like this one will be shared and founded. As you can see, we've indicated that this budget was approved on December 1st, and this is the final expense that needs to be reported, and this is the balance remaining. All the formulas are in there. You don't need to do anything but input the expenses. So in my example, there was no impact to the project line. But what if there was? So if there was a impact on this on the timeline, you would include a statement like, due to this change, our project timeline has been extended by 3 months. We request a 3-month no-cost extension to fully utilize the funds and increase the number of participants served from 30 to 38. Something simple like that. So once a response like this is received and we review, both the no-cost extension and a budget revision would be issued, and the applicant would be notified, the budget would be updated. And of course, any changes approved like that would would be noted in your reporting, whether it's final or interim. Next is the no cost extension, the requirements. So although there can be many reasons for requesting a no-cost extension, the most common reasons are delays in meeting the project timeline and unspent funds. When requesting an extension, you'll need to include the three things. Reason for the extension, explain why it is needed, revised timeline, the new anticipated project completion date, and year-to-date expenses by updating the shared budget file. An extension may be requested on its own, paired with a budget revision, or combined with a change in scope. Um, the standard no-cost extension period is 3 months. All extensions are reviewed and approved on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so this concludes everything I had hoped to cover. I appreciate your time. I hope this presentation was helpful. Just a final note. I want to emphasize the importance of timely, proactive communication. Whenever possible, please avoid waiting until the report due date to share issues or concern because all open grant reports are due at the same time. Our two-person team, huge, right, becomes quickly overwhelmed, and we cannot always provide prompt responses. With that said, my team and I are here to support you and are committed to assisting you in any way we can. Again, thank you so much for attending. Let's see if we have any